All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this month's Motivational Monday webinar. My name is Janet Tebow. I'm the chair of the IDA Branch Council, and I have the pleasure of being your host today. Before I introduce our speaker, I do have a few announcements. Please check our website, social media, and e-blasts for information on our upcoming Motivational Mondays. And I also wanted to let you know that IDA has launched its digital dyslexia library. The library is free for individuals, families, educators, and researchers and other professionals in the dyslexia community. It contains a wealth of articles, information, and videos, including past Motivational Monday webinars. I invite you to check it out at dyslexialibrary.org. Also, IDA has an ongoing charity sweepstake. Visit our website, dyslexiaida.org, to enter for your chance to win. The proceeds from the drawings will go to Project RED, Reimagining Education for Dyslexia, and the funds will provide struggling readers and their teachers the technology, software, tutorial, advocacy services, and training that they need. Today's topic is sound walls, making the speech-to-print connection in your classroom. Hold on just a second. Our presenter is Mary Ellis Dahlgren. Sorry about that. In this webinar, Dr. Dahlgren will help us understand how children learn our language, going from speech to print, and how using a sound wall instead of a word wall helps teachers implement the science of reading in their classroom and helps their students learn not only the 26 letters, but also the 44 sounds that make up the English language. Dr. Dahlgren is president of Tools for Reading. She's an experienced educator with over 25 years in the field of education. She's worked as a dyslexia therapist, elementary classroom teacher, international literacy consultant, and author. She wrote the highly successful Phonics Toolkit, which includes Kids' Lips and Phoneme Grapheme instructional cards for elementary special education and English language learning teachers. She's also a national trainer for the Distinguished Teacher Curriculum, Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, commonly known as LETTERS. She's the former executive director of Payne Education Center, a nonprofit teacher training center in Oklahoma. The center was established to provide teacher training for teachers of dyslexic students and to support parents of dyslexic children. She's also the president of the Reading League Oklahoma chapter. Her passion is to help everyone involved in reading instruction feel equipped and confident in providing the highest quality instruction possible. Welcome, Dr. Dahlgren. We're thrilled to have you with us, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Hi, welcome. I am so happy to be joining you, and welcome to, happy Monday. It's fun to be a part of this group, and I'm sorry I'm kind of floundering around with my slides, getting my slide share going, but we'll get it going. And I thank you, Janet, for that nice introduction. I'm going to say I just want you all to know I've had some tech issues since the first week of January, and so if my slides freeze or something, I will be contacted by someone and I might have to pause, but no worries. We will get through this and hopefully you guys will enjoy learning a little bit about sound walls, making making the speech to print connection in your classroom. And sound walls are really becoming a part of our common language every day in elementary classrooms. So I'm really happy to talk to you about this. And one of the things that people ask, why would I use the sound wall? What does this mean? So as we go into this talk, we're going to talk about articulation, the articulatory gestures to help make the phonemes concrete. So when I hear the sounds, I oftentimes am unaware of a sound because I say it and it's gone. But if we can draw students to attend to what their tongue, their teeth, their lips are doing, the voicing of the sounds or unvoiced sounds, it's going to help create that mental Velcro. We also want our students to be able to attend to the graphemes representing the phonemes. And so we talk about a sound wall, but it's not just about the sounds. We have to add the print. We know that we have to introduce those graphemes to our students. And so don't be thrown off by the name that it's just about sounds. Understanding the sound spelling system will build decoding and encoding skills. So we have, as what Linnea Airy referred to, two sides of a coin, the same side of a coin. The decoding and encoding, they both have to exist in order to get to proficient reading. And then finally, mastery of the sound spelling system will lead to fluency. And that's our ultimate goal, is that our students become fluent readers. They are able to put words and phrases together to combine those different propositions or ideas within sentences to comprehend the text and tie all those ideas together. So this is just that first stepping stone. And I'll repeat that as we go throughout this session and talk about this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain, and reading happens on the left side of the brain. And that is without a doubt that we know that that's where that occurs. Many of my colleagues and friends in IDA are trained in some type of Orton-Gillingham program or Orton-Gillingham-based program. So we're familiar with the terms Broca's area, the occipital lobe, the angular gyrus, and even Wernicke's area, which I didn't include here. But I did create a slide. This slide, it's pretty busy, but I want to talk to you about up in Broca's area. And so I have to say that's my left side of my brain, up by your temple, on the left side, towards the front of the brain. That's where that phonological processing occurs. So here's a little sound that's popped up, and you can see the child. I hope you can see this picture of the child making the sound. So that sound is what's activated in that phonological processing area. At the same time, when I'm reading, my orthographic processor back in the occipital lobe is where that part's activated when I see print. So actually, when I'm reading, it's activated, my brain is activated in the back, and then it's connected to that phonological processing area. So there I have the digraph TH. I want my students to be able to make those connections, and that happens in this angular gyrus area. The phoneme grapheme association occurs. So I'm mapping that speech to the print. And as we're doing that, we are making that connection from the sound to the print. So there's my connection, the digraph TH. I know those two go together. I have that sound that I can identify easily. I can identify that as a kindergartner. I might not be reading with digraph TH yet, but I have that in my spoken language. So I can talk to my students about that. And it's kind of a fun sound to make. Stick your tongue out, it vibrates, it tickles a little bit. Then when it's time to attach it to the print, I already have that. I've started that mental Velcro. I have the sound. Now I can attach that grapheme that fits with that sound. All right. And then here we have the visual word form area, also known as the letter box. And thanks to Stanislaus Dehaan, we're really talking more about that. Actually, I would be horrified if Dehaan saw this slide because I've taken it things so literally. But the visual word form area, that's where things are stored for automaticity. That's how we get to automaticity. Sound walls are going to relate to all of this. And so what do we have to do to get to that, for things to be stored in that visual word form area? I have to build this arc. And these are the neural pathways that we're building in the brain. And as teachers, that's exactly what you're doing. As you teach about the sound, as you teach about the print, those are connected. You are building that arc. And it's those neural pathways going back and forth that get to the point where it's automaticity. They're stored in the brain's letterbox. And one of the things we say about the brain's letterbox is if you just think about the US mail, once you put a letter in the box, you can't take it out of the mailbox, right? Once kids, once a reader stores information, stores the print, begins to store sight words, they don't come out. It's an amazing thing that happens in our brain. It's wired. And so now as I learn to read words like that, the, and this, that's automatic. I don't have to sound them out because I've stored them in that visual word form area. That comes from building those neural pathways. That's what we really want to talk about when we talk about the science of reading. You all are the scientists. You are making connections for your students as you're talking about the speech to the print. One of the things that we've done for years is we've gone straight to the print. And we've said speech to print, but we haven't necessarily taught that way. So that's where the sound wall, it's taking us a step back to help us focus on how do we do that? How do we support that for our teachers? So we focus on phonemes, we focus on articulation. We're hearing the sounds in the ear, and the articulatory gestures are those mouth movements. So the ease of processing, how do I process that information? So again, when we talk about processing in the brain, it favors gestures. I have something to notice and to hold on to, because as the third bullet says, sounds are ephemeral and they disappear as soon as they're heard. So I could say sounds are fleeting. I say it and it's over. So I say P, and it's gone. But if I get my students to notice, well, when you say the P sound, you put your lips together and you pop that sound out. It's a quick push of air, P, and I don't have any type of voicing. Now I'm creating those articulatory gestures. I'm helping my students to be more metacognitive about those gestures. And Al Lieberman, so one of my little quotes here, Al Lieberman in 1999 suggests articulatory gestures rather than acoustic features represent phonemes in the brain. This idea that I have something to hold on to. So our mouth positions, they're tangible, they can be felt, viewed in a mirror, and analyzed by learners. We'll talk more about this, but the idea, again, that as a teacher, one of the goals with a sound wall is that you're raising that awareness and you're getting students, one, you're teaching the sounds, you're talking about the sounds very explicitly, and two, you're helping your students to describe the sounds themselves, to be aware of those things. And that's an important part of building our phonemic awareness. Our goal is to get to phonemic proficiency. So my colleague David Kilpatrick has really raise the level of awareness around phonemic proficiency. Say fry, change the r to ol, fly. Can my students do that easily? Well, heck, if I don't even know what the sounds are and I don't have an awareness, it's going to be hard to figure out what you're asking me to do. So we're backing up a little bit and developing this phonemic awareness. So why is this conversation needed? If you don't get the structure of a word, you're going to have a hard time accessing that word and fixing it in your lexicon, storing it in that visual word form area. So how do we represent a phoneme if we don't have any awareness of it? I need, if I'm trying to figure out that those phonemes so that I can attach them to a grapheme, and I have my example here in bridge, I have b, I, j, but I have those sounds. Now it's easier now that I know each sound. So we've been segmenting forever, but creating that awareness of those individual sounds, noticing for my students what those sounds are, and then attaching the print. And so look at the j, it's spelled trigraph DGE that we use for spelling at the end of a word after a short vowel. But that's, as we think about j, I know J, I know GE, I know GY, I know GI, DGE. It's all these strings of letters. But if I know J, I have that one sound, then I know what are my options for spelling that sound, as opposed to just having strings of letters floating around out there and having to recall those strings of letters. We're organizing, we're using this to help organize the system of where do I place those things? How do all these pieces fit together? So, as I said, one of my favorite things, this is the mental Velcro to which we attach graphemes. Once I have the phonemes, I can attach graphemes more easily, and I have a place to store them. One of the other things that I say is that this is kind of like a chemistry table. How are things organized? A mathematical, a set of my multiplication tables. I have a very systematic way in which I learn them and understand them. We are giving students an area a place to store the sounds in a systematic way, so then we can begin to attach that print. And it's really difficult to make that shift from speech to print. Okay, so what's our goal? We want to get our students to proficient reading. So what do I have to do that, to make that happen? I need to read words accurately and automatically, instantaneously, when I see a word, to be able to recall that. That's because I have it stored in my visual word form area. So I need sight word recognition. And in order to get to sight word recognition, I need to understand phoneme grapheme correspondence. We do not memorize words as visual wholes. We've really learned that. It's not about a flashcard. I need to analyze words. I need to analyze the sound and the spelling in order for, and be able to do that several times, multiple times, before it becomes a sight word. How do I get to that phoneme grapheme correspondence? Well, I talk about phonemes and the articulation instruction, and that's where sound laws fit in. So a very beginning step in this whole process as we think about this. So this is Louisa, from Louisa Moats. I'm sure you all know her name. She's one of my mentors, and I've known Louisa for about 16 years and treasure and value every word that she says. One of her quotes, decoding print is possible only if the reader can map the print to the speech efficiently. Therefore, the elements of speech must be clearly and consciously identified in the reader's mind. We are creating that metacognitive awareness of the sounds, and I'm creating that Velcro in order for my students to be able to attach the print to the speech. And so we're going to go from speech to print. All right, let's get on with this. What's a sound wall? What's it look like? So I also tell, as you all heard in the introduction, I've been providing letters training for the last 16 years. And part of my letters training, we teach in Module 2, Unit 2, the consonant and the vowel charts. And part of my learning about the consonant and vowel charts and working with teachers to explain these charts, it was pretty abstract. And so my colleague Antonio Fierro and I put together what we call kid lips. And these are pictures of children's mouths with the consonant and vowel charts. So when you have a sound wall, you're actually going to have two different things going on. You have your consonant sounds and your vowel sounds. And that's just, it's how the language system is organized, the speech system is organized. So we need to be aware of that. That's some teacher training, professional development study in order to understand these sounds. This is a quick overview, but I want you to be aware of what a sound wall might look like. What's the setup? What's the template? I'll take you a little further into that, so don't worry. So how do you set up a sound wall? What does this look like to start with? One, you set things up according to the articulation of the speech sounds. So when I say that, the consonant charts are set up from moving from the front of your mouth to the back of the throat. We'll look more closely at that in just a minute. One other thing that I want to say is the vowels. When I'm teaching the vowels, it goes from a tight smile, E, and my vowel sounds drop down. My mouth opens bit by bit as I say each sound till I get to an open sound, what we call the doctor sound, ah, and then my mouth rounds back up. So it's all about the position of the mouth and creating that awareness of what's happening in my mouth when I make these sounds. We're going to approach things from a learner viewpoint rather than from a teacher viewpoint. So the learner viewpoint, for example, if you've ever taught kindergarten or first grade, your students are saying, teacher, how do you spell one? And they're looking for under W on a word wall for one, and you say, no, it's under the O. Look, one is under the O. And it's like, what? One's under the O? All right, where's they're looking under the U for up, and you say, oh no, it's under the O. Oh my gosh, how confusing is that? Let's talk about how the sounds and what's happening for our students. How do we make those connections to map that speech to that print so that things begin to make sense? I know that those words, those are irregular words. I'm very aware of that. But my students are still having to read and spell with those words in first grade, without a doubt. They're being introduced in kindergarten. So I have to make that connection for them, that learner viewpoint, in order for them to be able to successfully transfer into that automaticity. So we want an anchor to teach that letter sound knowledge using the articulatory gestures. We want to attach the phonemes to the orthographic patterns. It has everything to do with print. So print is the link here. All right, let's look more at our consonant chart. What do we talk about when we say the language systems that are organized around our speech sounds and consonant phonemes? So here's our consonant chart. And at the top, we have the place of articulation where the mouth and the sounds originate. So there's this green box that came up on the top of the chart there. And you see there's a red bar that says place in the mouth where phoneme is produced. Notice, I know it's a little bit hard to see on this slide, but the first column, you have the lips together. Lips pushed together for the p, b, sound, just to start off with. Then the next column says teeth on lips. I'm going to place my top teeth on my bottom lip, so I get the sound. Going back a little further in my mouth, so notice we're pulling back a little bit. My tongue between the teeth, so I get the and the sound I showed you on those opening slides. Then look at all the sounds in the column that are where my tongue, the tip of the tongue is touching the top of my mouth, or right on the top, in the ridge behind my teeth. It's called the alveolar ridge. And you have sounds like the t and the d sound. So now I've gone from the front of my mouth, p, b, that's very front, to now I'm pulling back further in my mouth to the t and the d sound. My tongue's going to pull back a little bit further for the sh sound. My lips are rounded and my tongue is pulled back. Shh. And then your tongue now in it says back of the throat, tongue lifted. So I have the k and the g sound. You'll notice if you say those sounds, k, g, that your tongue is lifting in the back of your throat. The back of my tongue is lifting and it's stopping the airflow. And then the very last sound, that single sound in the last column where it says back of the throat, that's the sound, as in horse. So I overdid that, but the idea that sound is coming from the back of my throat. So seeing the sounds are arranged from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth. I'll address some questions that teachers also have about this, because I'm going to tell you again, we're coming at this from the learner viewpoint, not the teacher viewpoint, not the proficient reader viewpoint. We have talked about A through Z for so long, and I'm not going, and please don't misunderstand. I'm still teaching A to Z. I'm teaching alphabetical order. But when I'm teaching about sounds and the articulation of sounds, I'm changing the way that I'm introducing those, and because I want my students to be aware of that organization. And We've got 44 speech sounds. I only have 26 letters, so I have to make those connections. The manner of articulation, so there's another green box that came up going down the side, what we do with our breath and our vocal cords. So when I say a sound, so I'm going to go with the f sound, the f and the v sound. So my teeth are on my lips, the airflow. If you say that sound as in fish, it's hard to feel the airflow, but there's friction in the airflow. So as it's flowing around my teeth and trying to get through my mouth, there's friction. And so when I say the sound, there's no voicing, but I can make that same, I can do those same gestures, but turn my voice on. And boy, that tickles my lips, and I can really feel that here, or I can put my hands over my ears. I hope you guys are doing this with me. Now I feel that resonating in my ears. And I say that because so many of our students, they have a hard time feeling it here. So if I put my hands over my ears, I can tell the difference in those sounds. We're going to draw their attention to those types of things. All right, let's look a little bit more closely at these articulatory features. So this is a little piece from our Kid Lips manuals, but we talk about the fact that the sound features, and this is technical, I don't teach kids all this information, this is teacher knowledge. Labiodental, these sounds are made when the lower lip is raised towards the upper front teeth. You can see the picture of this child doing that. The is produced by curling your lower lip back, raising it to touch your upper row of teeth, and blocking the airflow out of your mouth. If you place your hand in front of your mouth, you can barely feel the air escaping, but you can hear the friction as the air is being forced out of your mouth. Therefore, the f is also called a fricative. I say that because I wanted to be very explicit about that, because I teach students, even kindergartners and first graders, the word fricative. And some teachers say that's too much, but you know what? I put a label on things. I tell them what a car is, a tree is. I tell them that's the alphabet. I tell them we're going to the gymnasium. Why can't I put the name fricative on it? It's just something that's new for us as teachers, and we want to have the right labels for things. So we call that a fricative sound. And friction, if you understand friction, you have lots of opportunities to develop that vocabulary and help kids to understand those types of things. So don't be afraid of the labels. Let me show you a couple of others. We have on that top row, I have stop consonants. Stops, they're a quick push of breath. So you have the p and the b sound. P. We don't say p and b. We just quickly have that push of breath and the sound is over. As I said, our sounds are fleeting. So sometimes they're hard to hear or notice, but if I have those articulatory gestures to connect to, and I talk about those sounds, it gives me that Velcro to hold on to that information. Or you see our student who was a first grader and very clearly looks like many first graders. The front teeth are missing, but you can still touch the ridge of the alveolar ridge, the ridge behind your teeth, even though your teeth aren't there in first grade, and say the t and the d sound. And those are the things, those connections we're trying to make for children, really bringing it down to the child level, the classroom level, so that it's not so abstract. So teachers ask all the time, how do I post a sound wall? Here's a consonant sound wall, and you can see we have pictures and keywords. You'll notice on the little blue squares, those are covering up all the graphemes. What are my spellings for those sounds? So as I begin posting a sound wall, across the top, I have the descriptors, my lips together, my teeth on my lips, the tongue behind my teeth, the tongue between my teeth, tongue behind my teeth. The lips are rounded, the back of the throat, and then the airflow is unobstructed. I start using those labels so I can figure out what categories to put my sounds in. But I start with the sounds, the keywords, because your kindergartners, first graders, they're all speaking with the sounds. Okay, so hear me. They're all speaking with the sounds. They are not spelling and reading with all the sounds. But I can talk about all 44 speech sounds in kindergarten. I can talk about all 44 speech sounds in first grade. And if I understand the sounds, then when I start to unpeel those blue stickies that as I reveal, what are the graphemes that we use to spell those sounds, we use for reading, then now I have a place to hold. I have that placeholder, that mental parking spot that we've created. So that's one of the big things that I want teachers to know and understand about when teaching sound walls. Okay, so phoneme grapheme relationship. Phonemes are mental parking spots for a grapheme. I just said that. It's the mental Velcro to which we attach graphemes. You see the children here. This is a kindergarten classroom in this picture. They have their mirrors there. They've looked at their sounds. They've moved their little counters, and now they've written the word. So it definitely has to do with the print. So how do we represent a phoneme if we don't have any awareness of it? That's why we're creating sound walls. Here you're seeing some more explicit instruction. This is a second grade classroom where the teacher's talking about those sounds. They've created a sound wall because we're in second grade. Look at all the spellings we're adding under the f and the v sound. And kids are adding those words that go with those sounds. So getting them to notice that. And you're going to see in just a few minutes when I have, I'm going to talk about the f sound, and I might ask, what are my choices for spelling? Oh, there's the f sound. I have F. I have a red box, which means short vowel, FF, and then I have PH. All right, those are all categorized under the sound f. So I want my students to make those connections. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about vowel sounds. How are those organized? So we have these labels for place and what we do with our tongue as we open or round our lips. So vowels are in the front, the middle, or the back. Where in the mouth is the sound being produced? Is the tongue high, low, or pulled back? So here's another visual, a closer image of the Vowel Valley. There's 18 vowel sounds. You might think of the vowel sounds as A, E, I, O, U, but that's not sufficient for teaching reading and spelling, that encoding and decoding side. So I'm going to just quickly go through the sounds. We'll have to do another workshop to really dig into this, but I want you to think about this. Watch or think about the opening of the mouth. You can see the pictures on the chart. They go E, I, A, I, ah, o, oo, and u. We have on the left, the bottom left, diphthongs, not diphthongs, diphthongs, oi and ow. And then on the right, we have the vowel R's, r, or. Yes, I even talk with kindergartners about this. They don't need to know how to spell these, but again, I'm doing exercises like, let's segment the word lake, lake. What's the middle sound? A. I'm not reading with a consonant E yet, but I can segment those sounds. Or what are the sounds in moon? Oo, n. What's the middle sound? Ooh. Not spelling with that OO, but I'm creating that sound. But guess what? When I introduce that OO spelling for moon, my students already know that sound. It becomes like that connection happens rapidly and easily for my students. Here's a first grade teacher. One of the teachers that I worked with in Alabama, working with her students. I don't know if you can see that picture as they're reviewing the vowel sounds. This is kind of part of their daily warm up. They have their mirrors in their hands, and she stops and talks about these sounds. One day when I was there, they were talking about the I and the S sound. What's the difference between I and eh? And they were looking in their mirrors. They were talking to their partners about those two sounds. They're in Alabama. In Oklahoma, We don't have a clear differentiation between those sounds frequently in words like get. We say get more than get. So noticing those things and helping kids to differentiate. So because meaning is going to play a big role there. 10 and 10. You see the vowel chart on the right side. Those are some pictures. The big mouth pictures are Linda Bell pictures. So I tell teachers all the time, look, if you've been trained in Linda Bell, you know this stuff. Bring it to the classroom, bring it alive, and talk with your students about that. Make those connections with them. I also have some more pictures of students playing with these sounds. These were some third grade students that I was working with and really thinking about the sounds, Spanish speakers, and that I sound that they were having such a hard time, itch. And I explained to them that the I in Spanish says E as in see, yes. And but the I in English says the I or the I sound. And I said, and guess what? You don't have the I sound in Spanish. And that's why you have a hard time. And they were blown away. These were third grade students. Nobody had ever explained that to them. And then they started playing with the mouth pictures and saying, what's my sound? And their friends had to describe it. So that was a lot of fun. All right, we want to add graphemes to your sound walls. That's part of what we do. Adding graphemes, explicitly teach one concept at a time. And this might be through your spelling list. So now I have the sounds. I've created all those parking spots, and now I'm going to add the print. When you add a new spelling to go with the sound, you don't have to teach all the spellings. Use a sticky note to cover up the graphemes that haven't been taught. Use your mouth pictures to support an existing program if you have those. When you're introducing the sound walls, introduce the patterns and add 1 or 2 words to the wall. Focus on phonemes and mapping them to graphemes. Use the first sound in a word to place it on the wall. Practice blending phonemes together to read words, not flashing words on cards. You want to practice blending those phonemes even in irregular words. Irregular words deserve more analysis than words that fit the pattern, because I'm trying to figure out how that works. So irregular words are not just about being placed on a flashcard and learned visually, but we're going to analyze the sounds of the words. What sounds match up and what sounds are irregular? What are the spellings that are irregular? Okay, review the sounds daily, develop a chant or routine, review the words on the wall. I said you start with, you post words by the first sound. You're going to see some, especially with vowels, where that sound is in the middle. But here's an example. Very common words in a first grade classroom. We all have the ah sound. Here's the ah sound. And I have not and stop underlined in red there to make that connection for them. Here's one of the reasons we don't use just word walls. Octopus and off are okay, but orange should go under the or sound, not under the O. So there's a thing, that's that piece we've always done, but now that we know better, we do better. So when you add the graphemes to your wall, you might do things like that application, phoneme grapheme mapping, sorting words, building words, word chaining. There's a number of activities that you can do in order to make those connections to the print. Here's just a little visual of, I emphasized the J sound just a few minutes ago. If I'm teaching DGE, how would I get my students to notice the J sound and then map that speech to the print? Moving markers down for sounds in the box, B, A, J, and then we're going to put the print in the boxes. So I'm getting my students to notice I've got that phoneme and I'm mapping it to the grapheme, speech to print. So you have a sound wall. What do I do with it? Daily review. Point to all the sounds posted on the consonant chart. Ask students to repeat them after you. Reminder, they're arranged from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth. Get your kids to notice that. Get them to start explaining those things. Other things, ask questions. What are the 3 sounds made by the air flowing through my nose? So if I say, man, I can't keep saying it if I hold my nose. Kids love that. So we're going to say the and sound. And you really notice front, middle, back when I say those sounds. What two sounds are made when I put my top teeth on my bottom lip and blow? The answer would be the f and the v. You'd want to point that out. So quick connections after you've introduced the sounds, just doing some quick review, but also integrate this during daily reading and writing, because that's where you're going to begin to see where kids make errors. They can begin to self-correct and notice why they're having difficulties. It's not because they're just wrong. It's because there's a lot of phonological errors that our students make early on. And this gives us that opportunity to give that immediate corrective feedback. Other things. So there's that f in the v card. I might ask a question like, oh, I should have popped those in, but noticing that v spelling is spelled V or VE at the end of a word. And that might be a question I ask. When do I know, when do I spell, or how do I spell v at the end of the word? I spell it with a VE. Oh, so that's why love, give, and have the VE there. We begin to notice those types of things. Which sound is voiced? Is it the S or the Z sound? Let's talk about that. Oh, let's look at our Z card. I have the letters Z and S. And let's look at these words that we read all the time. Has, was, is. Oh, I notice all of those words have an S at the end, but it sounds like Z. That's a really important thing to help first graders know and understand as we're making connections. Okay, other things we can do to review. Point to all the vowel sounds as you say them. And it's really fun to run through those vowel sounds and feel your mouth going. It's starting with that tight smile, drop down, going back up and rounding. Point to the ah, get the key word as an apple. As they make the sound, make a gesture as if holding an apple. Point to the I, make the keyword itch, and help kids to connect to those sounds and notice those sounds regularly. Focus on specific spelling patterns. Why use the sound to determine spelling choices that have been introduced? What are my choices for spelling the k sound? I could use K, C, or CK. When do I use CK? If I've introduced that pattern, I want to take advantage of making that connection, talking about the sound and the spelling. What are my choices for the f sound? When do I use FF? So again, those are all opportunities to bring up that encoding and decoding. I might want to segment a word with that. So that's a lot of information all at once. I have a couple of frequently asked questions that I'm happy to share with you all. And I look forward to hearing your comments and being able to respond to them also while partaking in this event. So I'm just going to share with you a couple of things. How would I recommend to start the process of transitioning from a word wall to a sound wall? I have lots of teachers who say, I don't even use a word wall anymore, and that's fine. We recommend posting all phonemes, consonant and vowels on the first day of school and introducing those sounds over the first 12 to 13 weeks. I say you post them, go ahead and post them, because we have, we're working with all the sounds. As I said, your children come to school speaking with all the sounds. I don't have to teach them all at once. I can introduce them over time. Some teachers prefer to have the cards turned over if they haven't introduced anything, but at least, and if you don't have mouth pictures, hopefully you have pictures that have the keyword and the spellings. You can post those in the order in which we've introduced things to get them to notice. There's lots of pictures on the Facebook page, Tools for Reading, showing sound walls and posting graphemes as they're taught. I already showed you this picture, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the first day of kindergarten might look like. First grade wouldn't look like this, because first grade, they've already learned most of the graphemes. They've learned TH, they've learned common digraphs. Usually in kindergarten, they're introduced. So thinking about what would be uncovered my first day of first grade. Do I recommend hanging phonemes on the sound wall only when introduced? What about students that are ready for additional phonemes? Well, no, I said we put them on the wall. We put them all on the wall, but on this picture you can see we have this bright yellow frame around the k and the g sound. So maybe the sounds that are posted here, those are the focus of the week, our consonant sounds, but I'm going to put a frame around the one that I really want my students to work with. So just creating some type of a cardboard frame to get them to notice, to zero in on that sound. Is there an ideal location for a sound wall in the classroom? So you want it to be user-friendly, placing it where students can see it, mimic the articulatory gestures. I've had some teachers that even hang a mirror near the sound wall so students can check to see if their mouth looks like the picture. Let me show you this picture. You'll see this one. This is really awesome. The teacher put the pictures and the keywords where the students could see them, and she punched holes in them so the students could pick up the card, look at that, and look in the mirror. You can't see the mirror, but am I making my mouth look like the mouth in the picture as I'm making those sounds? I thought that was a really creative way to make it interactive. Have I found issues with grouping the letters by nasal stops, affricates, liquids, and fricatives? No, and not being in alphabetical order. So again, one of the things that this is kind of the biggest shift for us as teachers. We've always done things in ABC order, but again, we're approaching things from a learner viewpoint. So we are going to come at that from making sense. Not as teachers, it's a new piece of making sense of the system of phonology, and really phonetics is what this is called. But we want to group our phonemes, our graphemes, by the place that they occur in our mouth. And I think that's a really important piece. Don't just try to do A through Z or just add extra places on the sound wall. We want you to group them by the articulation. All right. One more. What do you like most about sound walls? Well, they go from speech to print. And the other big piece that I want to add in is for our English language learners, sound walls are an excellent way to help solidify phonemes that may not exist in their native language. So as I said earlier, the little boys that I was working with that were Spanish speakers, the I sound doesn't even exist in Spanish. But early on, we're reading lots of words. Is, it, in. I need to know that sound, and I need to be able to make a connection with that sound. So the idea of a sound wall for my EL students is such a powerful tool. We've seen our children that are in classrooms that are using sound walls really be able to make connections easily. I hope you guys have found this to be helpful and that you will think a little bit about, reflect on what you'll take back to your classroom from this, what you might try after attending the session and what other questions you might have. So I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. My name's Mary Dahlgren. My email is mary@toolsforreading.com. There's the Facebook page, the Tools for Reading, or Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Tweet for IDA or post things from IDA as you've attended this talk too. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this shift that we're making in classrooms, making connections from speech to print.
Dr. Dahlgren, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And I'm looking forward to stepping into a lot of classrooms where we have sound walls instead of word walls. Thanks so much to your insights. A couple of reminders as we get ready to end out today's Motivational Monday. I invite everyone to check out IDA's digital library at dyslexialibrary.org. Please consider taking part in our charity sweepstakes at dyslexiaida.org. Subscribe and like us on social media so that you can hear about our upcoming Motivational Mondays for the rest of the year. And please reach out and keep in touch with us. And we look forward to seeing you at upcoming events.